Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ministry of Heritage, Tourism, Sports and Culture Industry Stakeholders Telephone Town Hall. We are live this morning with Minister Lisa MacLeod. In addition, we are joined by hundreds of stakeholders from throughout the province listening in. To ask a question at any time live this morning, simply press 3 on your phone's keypad. Once again, press 3 to ask a question at any time over the course of the Town Hall. My name is Eric, and I'll be facilitating the Town Hall today. During this live telephone town hall, we encourage you to get involved and to ask questions. Minister MacLeod chose this format as this is an interactive town hall with you, which means we want to hear from you this morning. Minister MacLeod and the Ministry of Heritage, Tourism, Sports and Culture have made it a priority to engage and connect with you and other stakeholders to update you on the current status of COVID-19 and its impact on different sectors of our economy. Our intention is to get as many questions as possible. You can ask a question at any time by pressing 3 on your phone's keypad. Someone will take your name and place you in the question queue. Now again, for people still joining us, hello, and welcome to the Ministry of Heritage, Tourism, Sports and Culture Industries Stakeholders Telephone Town Hall. We are live this morning with Minister Lisa MacLeod, and in addition, we are joined by hundreds of stakeholders from throughout the province listening in. We want to remind everyone joining us that you can ask a question at any time by pressing 3 on your phone's keypad. Someone will take your name and place you in the question queue. At this time, I'm going to turn over the event to today's moderator, Tim Hudak, so he can open up the town hall and introduce the minister. Tim, please go ahead.
Well, terrific, Eric. Thanks very much. And folks, welcome. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining today's call. As Eric indicated, my name is Tim Hudak. I'm the CEO of the Ontario Real Estate Association, representing the 80,000 realtors in the province of Ontario. But I think Minister MacLeod asked me to be on this call because, not only have we been friends and colleagues for a long time as a former MPP, and I guess I'm a recovering politician, but I was there at the cabinet table as a minister of what was then called Tourism, Culture and Recreation at the time of the 9/11 crisis that many of you lived through, and as well at the cabinet table during the SARS crisis in 2003. And what we're experiencing today is a really devastating combination of both of those events. And I know the minister feels the same way. Outside of the healthcare system, there is no more directly and immediately impacted sector as heritage, sport, tourism, and culture. The minister and I chatted actually a couple weeks ago because I reached back to her and said, here's some things we did back in those two crises to try to help these important sectors to cope and then to come out strong. And she said, I'm already on it. And she had a number of ideas that she was working on, and also said she had worked on these teleconference calls. So I said, fantastic, and it was really honored when the minister asked me to be the moderator. I know that we had over 500 different operators who had pre-registered. I'm sure there are more that have now joined the call as the minister reached out to you, because you're feeling it. You're feeling it on the front line. People have stopped moving around. They're not attending your businesses. Many of you had to close down, and you've got that heartbreaking decision of how you keep going, how you pay the bills, and what happens to members of your team when there is no business coming through the door and we don't know when people are going to be coming around. So I want to say, as somebody who's been there at the table in challenging times, my hat's off to Minister MacLeod in organizing this, reaching out directly to you to hear what is happening on the ground and to come up with solutions to help you rebound and deal with the COVID-19 crisis as it unfolds. So as Eric said, I've got some pre-submitted questions that I'm going to ask the minister after her introductory comments, but we'd love to hear directly from you with anything you want to share with Minister MacLeod and your suggestions for how we deal with the current situation and move forward. Again, press 3 on your phone, and we'll queue up those calls. So with that, I'm very honored to introduce Minister Lisa MacLeod for her opening remarks.
Thanks very much, Tim. As everyone knows, Tim Hudak is a longtime friend, former MPP, a leader of our party, but also he was a former tourism minister and a close confidant to me over many, many years. So I was obviously very excited when he decided he would join us today as our moderator. So thank you very much, Tim. I'm really grateful for you to do this and the fireside chat, the virtual fireside chat that we're going to do, so that I can update our industry partners on ministry plans for heritage, sport, tourism, and culture in the wake of COVID-19, the public health situation we find ourselves in now, and the state of emergency that was declared by our government on Tuesday. I want to first and foremost assure all partners on this call that when the first case of COVID-19 emerged in Ontario on January the 25th, I instructed my team in the ministry to review lessons from the SARS issues, and I asked them to begin planning for recovery scenarios in the event COVID-19 reached that level. I also called the former ministers of tourism and culture during the SARS crisis so I could best prepare and be ready when this hit. In recent weeks, I've convened 11 advisory tables in various sectors, one multi-sectoral table, a daily briefing within the ministry, and I participate in daily cabinet meetings, weekly economic ministers meetings, weekly emergency measures meetings, and a weekly meeting with my federal, provincial, and territorial cabinet colleagues. Convening such discussions has been helpful in informing me of the challenges faced across each sector and throughout the entire province. It also put the ministry in a position of readiness when last Wednesday we rapidly felt the ground shift below our feet, as we are now experiencing a far greater public health and economic crisis than SARS. Since last Wednesday, we have all witnessed the cancellation of public events like live concerts, the theatre, the symphony, the opera, the ballet, professional and amateur sports, from the Raptors to the Olympic trials in swimming to my own daughter's hockey tournament, to the halting of all film and television productions in Toronto, Hamilton, Ottawa, North Bay, and elsewhere, the closure of restaurants, including the neighborhood pub, the rapid decline in hotel and airline reservations in every part of Ontario, to the shutdown of our public libraries, our community museums, and our local recreation facilities in every village, town, and city in our province. The magnitude of this public health situation and its impact on the very people on this call is nothing short of devastating. And it's unpredictable, with information changing sometimes by the hour, as many of on this line can attest. Since we've been convening our tables, sometimes our meeting decision points changed as new information became available. On Tuesday, in order to contain the spread of COVID-19, our government took the extraordinary measure of declaring a state of emergency. It was not a decision that was taken lightly, but it was a necessary decision to protect the health and well-being of all Ontarians, and based on the advice of the Chief Medical Officer of Health. I recognize the significant impact that the state of emergency has had on this ministry and our partners in particular. 5 of the 7 orders pertain directly to everyone on this call: the forced closure of restaurants and bars, indoor recreation facilities, concert venues, live performance, and our public libraries. I know, however, that you will all agree that these are necessary steps to protect you and your loved ones, and that these strong measures now will ensure our medical system will remain strong and that our healthcare providers will have the appropriate resources and personnel. I also know that the federal government's decision to close the border to non-essential travelers has been difficult for our border communities and our tourism partners. That was a tough decision for the federal government, but it was also prudent, responsible, and necessary. In response, the federal government has announced economic measures that responded to our provincial call for support to businesses and EI reform with an $82 billion package that will support Canadians at this time. Our Ontario government is also acting. We will release an economic and fiscal update on March the 25th to reflect the current environment and support for Ontarians. As Premier Ford has said, and I quote, "No expense will be spared to support Ontarians in need, and that there is no level of support we won't consider." To that end, our government has already made an immediate and initial investment of $300 million into our healthcare system. I know all of you on this call are concerned about supports for your organizations and businesses at this time, especially in order to support your staff or your volunteers. Let me say this: funding in all of our sectors will remain stable, meaning regional tourism organizations will receive their allocations. Film and TV tax credits will remain intact, as will the Ontario Music Fund. Community museums, heritage organizations, and public libraries will continue to receive their grants. We will continue to support our provincial sports organizations and our sport hosting events. Our agencies like the Trillium Foundation, the Ontario Arts Council, Ontario Heritage Trust, Destination Ontario, and Ontario Creates will be fully supported by me and the ministry. Our convention centers and attractions like Ottawa's and Toronto's convention centres, and the ROM, AGO, our two science centres in the north, and in Toronto, our two parks commissions in Niagara and St. Lawrence, as well as the Royal Botanical Gardens and the McMichael Gallery are on top of my mind and will remain fully supported. And we will continue to support more than 400 festivals and events through our various programs like the Ontario Cultural Attractions Fund and Celebrate Ontario. I recognize that these are extraordinary times. Day-to-day is unpredictable. But I ask that you remain confident that our team at the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industries will do our part to ensure that we have a plan that includes additional funding and expedited funding so you can do what you all do best. That is to continue to contribute to the spectacular double bottom line of this province, creating experiences in every community in Ontario for people in every walk of life, making music and movies, helping artists top charts and athletes top podiums, opening your doors to travelers, whether for a craft brew, a short-haul flight, or a pleasant night stay, building vibrant cities, villages, and towns by supporting local heritage and literacy, celebrating Ontario's unique cultural fabric at our festivals, theatres, operas, and symphonies, supporting our youth in sports, whether on the pitch or on the playground, and making sure all Ontarians have access to the arts. You all contribute to what makes Ontario proud of our people and our place. And I know in these challenging times, your businesses and organizations have taken the first and the worst of the current economic reality. I want you to know that you have no fiercer protector or advocate than me. And we will get through this together. And when we do, Ontarians will once again rely on all of you to make their hometowns sparkle again. You give Ontario a quality of life that is the envy of the world, and I am grateful to each of you for how you build and support the cultural fabric of this province. I'll continue to work with all of you in the coming days, weeks, and months to ensure that when this public health crisis is over, that Ontario will once again be in the best position to welcome back the world to our province. It's what's keeping me up at night, but it's also what's getting me back up and ready to go every morning. I want to thank everyone on this call, and Tim for you being my moderator, as well as my deputy Nancy, and the rest of our team that is on the line today. I'm looking forward to not only taking questions, but also to receiving advice on how we get through this together in these early days. Thank you very much. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Minister, for those opening comments. How you're getting information, how you're making decisions, and we can hear the passion in your voice and the pride you have for these amazing sectors and engines for local economies. In the way you talked about it, where your heart is. And I know you're a strong advocate, very strong advocate at the cabinet table for these sectors. So I know many people are very concerned with what's happening day to day and the plan going forward, or to give you advice. So I'll ask again, folks on the line, to press 3 and to queue up your questions. We have a number of questions already coming in. We did, Minister, have a number that were submitted ahead of time. I'm going to start with a few of those, if that's good for you.
Perfect.
Okay, so a big one that we got from a number of people was around the tourism marketing plan. The SARS crisis had a major impact on Ontario's brand in 2003, and the Tourism Marketing Fund was used to try to help restore consumer confidence, get people traveling again within Ontario or visiting Ontario. Now, COVID-19 is something, unlike SARS, it's impacting on everybody. So can you walk us through what's happening with the tourism marketing plan, and then, Minister, what you see happening once the emergency declaration is relieved to get people moving again?
Yeah, thank you very much. So just a couple of things. We have 13 regional tourism organizations that I've been meeting with weekly starting last week with respect to COVID-19. I'm going to ensure that their funding remains stable, not only for the next year, but to make sure that they also we also flow the money quickly to them, as quickly as we can through the Treasury, so that they can continue to position Ontario in the best possible way as we move forward. I've also convened, as I mentioned, several advisory tables, and one will look at marketing and how we can best position Ontario. A week ago we were talking about how some some regions of the province would have been isolated, and within, as I said, this has been rapidly changing. As I said, within a day, that has shifted. There is no community that is immune to this right now, and so we're seeing. It doesn't matter if it's from the city of Ottawa, where I live, to the city of Toronto, to our RTO 13 in the north. Everybody is affected, and so they've got my commitment that we're going to position ourselves in the immediate term, and then as well in a longer term. And I'm really grateful, Tim. One of the agencies that we have is called Destination Ontario. Lisa MacLeod is our CEO, and she's been working with me on a daily basis so that we can position our province to not only be good at the domestic visitation and getting people from other parts of Canada to travel this summer to Ontario, but to looking at those markets where they're going to want to spend their travel dollars at somewhere that is safe and secure, and that I always say that we're the world in one province, where they can actually see themselves in our communities. So that level of support will remain, and we're just looking at ways now that we can get money out the door quickly, and that we can support those on the ground as quickly as possible.
The another question we got, and I can feel this because we were looking to travel around during this March break. Now the girls are home. I know spring is a huge time for festivals and events, let alone the sporting events like your daughter Victoria's hockey team you mentioned earlier on. So number one, with respect to promoting festivals and events, what's going to happen with the Celebrate Ontario Festival and events funding this year? And then I'll have a follow-up question about events that have been postponed. Can they still get access to those funds that have been postponed?
Yeah, we're looking at those who have sunk costs, and we want them to be in a position, if they've had to cancel this year, we want them in a position so that next year that they're still around. So we're looking at options there. Celebrate Ontario, as I said in my remarks, and on the Ontario Cultural Attractions Fund, we're looking at ways to if there's an ability for me to enhance them, I'll do that, and make sure that they get out to every community. At the end of the day, when summer hits and this is contained, Ontarians are going to want to go out into their communities. One of the great things about this ministry is you get to see the real impacts of the quality of life and the people that create them. And for example, some of the great festivals I got to attend last year, like the Bollywood mashup in Mississauga, totally incredible. We want to make sure that events like that showcase our unique cultural diversity continue, and that they're in a position of strength as we move forward. They drive lots of tourism dollars. Every dollar I invest in a festival returns 21 to the community. It makes good economic sense, but it also makes good sense for the cultural fabric of the province. So Celebrate, we're looking at how we best allocate those dollars, but those dollars will absolutely be allocated this year. We just have to see who's continuing on with their programming. If they're postponing their programming, perhaps an organization that was positioned for June may now go in October. So we're right now doing that groundwork, but I want to assure everybody on the line that is an important fund, and it is one that really builds communities even with a small targeted investment.
Terrific. I'm going to ask you, Minister, another one of the questions that we received ahead of time. Again, we had a bunch of questions in the same area, and that's going to be on film and television. And then we've got a number of calls queued up, so I'm going to go to a live question after this next one that was pre-submitted. And again, to all those listening, we're here for the telephone town hall with Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture, Minister Lisa MacLeod. We've got well over 500 people on the call. So if you want to ask a question to the Minister, we'll do our best. Please hit 3 on your phone, and we'll queue up those questions. So a pre-submitted question, we had a whack of them around film and television, Minister, and with the Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health, no gatherings more than 50 people, that has shut down film and television sites across the province. This has been a major jewel for us, a major job producer, investment, showcasing Ontario's talent. So what's your plan, or what looks like it's in the works to try to get that restarted and keeping that investment here in Ontario as opposed to other jurisdictions?
Yeah, I have a number of people in the film and television industry on a ministry advisory panel. I think we're set to meet in the next couple of days. In addition, there are representatives on my multi-sectoral table. Just go back to tourism for a moment. We were in a position to announce that tourism had grown from a $34 billion industry to a $36 billion industry right before this. Similarly, in television and film, we have moved the needle in a year from $1.9 billion in terms of economic contribution to $2.16 billion. And a lot of that growth happened in our domestic market, Canadian content. And that was a really great story that we were able to tell a couple of weeks ago. We've seen an increase in the last year of about 7,500 new jobs, with a total of 44,000 in across the province. So obviously this is an area that was growing before this, and it's an area that I think Ontarians should be proud of. So we're going to make sure that we continue to echo this tax credit system that we have is stable. We're going to have to see if there's a way to quicken that, and I'll work with Ontario Creates to do that. Second is we got to keep building capacity for our film-friendly locations, including sound stages. I'm working with the Minister of Labour Skills Development so that we can train those below the line, and I want to continue to invest in Canadian content. So this is an area where there will be economic growth, and I'll take advice from those in the industry, and I speak to them regularly. I know I spoke with one of our directors, Sergio Navrata, yesterday, as well as one of our stratagem companies, Jonathan and he, yesterday. They're giving me advice in real time, just like the other sectors. So I want to continue to grow this sector. It's going to have a couple bumps along the way, but you know what? Ontario has experienced what everywhere else in the world has experienced. So production in LA has also been halted, and so any of the places that we've been competing with are facing the same experiences as us. So just like in tourism, just like our festivals, film and television is going to have to be ready for our resurgence, our recovery, and we'll regroup after this, and I know we'll succeed. So it's just making sure that cultural infrastructure in all those areas, whether it's tourism, culture, or sport, are maintained at this time.
Okay, terrific. Minister, thank you very much. Let's now go to our first live call. Again, if you want to ask a live question to Minister Lisa MacLeod or give her some advice, please hit 3 on your phone. We'll get to many questions as we can. So, Eric, I'll ask you to come on the line and let us know, introduce the first caller.
Our first live caller is going to be Marie. Marie, welcome. You're joining us live on the line. Please go ahead.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Minister MacLeod. We really appreciate the work that government is doing, and I want to tell all colleagues on the call that we stand in solidarity with you. I'm with the Ontario Museum Association, which represents 700 museums across the province, and I want to assure Minister MacLeod that we stand ready to work with you to ensure that our museums can thrive and be especially supported at this time, as they can be part of the solution as the schools are closed and can offer digital experiences. The question I have is regarding the grants for museums and heritage organizations and the recommendation and feasibility that there be an early disbursement of those operating grants, which are mostly established from year to year. Thank you, Minister.
Thanks very much, Marie. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the great work you're doing in every community, and I'd like to talk to you more about the digital experiences, because right now, as we are in a period of social distancing and some people are in self-isolation, we want to make sure that all of the great things we do, whether it's a museum, an art gallery, our musicians, our artists, are showcased, and if we can do that digitally together, I'd love to do that. But getting to your point about releasing the operating grants for museums, this is something my Deputy Minister Nancy Matthews and I are working on right now. As you know, the fiscal year end is next week, and so a new fiscal starts on April the 1st, and so we're working right now to see how we can get you liquid as quickly as possible, and that's not just museums. museums. It's all over the entire sectors, wherever that's happening. We recognize that right now that is a priority, and so if we can achieve that, we are going to do that. We're doing everything in our power to make sure that those of you who have been sustaining your operations from our grants, that this is what we need to do. So thank you.
Marie, thanks so much for the question. I do appreciate that. Marie, on behalf of the Ontario Museum Association, as we do these live calls, just ask you, as Marie did, to introduce yourself and tell us what business you're with and perhaps what part of the province. Minister, I'm glad to say we have over 800 people now who have joined this call. So Lots of questions, I'm sure. Again, press 3. And again, kudos to you for doing this and opening yourself up to talk to people who are being directly impacted and hard hit by the current COVID-19 crisis. I'll ask another one of the questions that was pre-submitted, then I'll go back to Eric for another live call. One of the things that we were going to do for March break, now the girls were home, was walk down to our local library. Luckily, it's a short walk for us to go there. Girls love going to the library. It's great learning and recreational activity. And, of course, libraries shut down as a result of the risk of transmission. So what's going to be happening with our library sector? And how can we continue to support them through digital means or other methods as we go through this crisis and go forward?
Well, thanks again. And I guess back to Marie's point and to your point, Tim, let's start talking about the digital experiences. Those are conversations we're now having within the ministry. And I would like to look toward private industry to work with us in finding a way where we can get collections, whether that's or concerts online through a website that we might maintain. And so I'm happy to have that conversation with our public libraries and to be able to support them that way. And similar as well to the museums and our other grantees, we want to continue to make sure that they operate, and we'll work with our local municipalities to ensure that happens, and the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. But we're going to continue to support them at this time and to make sure that there's a platform available so that when people are going back to their local library that they're fully supported, but also to make sure that in this new reality that their collection of literature and books is available to the public.
Minister MacLeod has shown what a open and dedicated and driven minister she is for the heritage, sport, tourism, and culture industries. I think after healthcare, probably the most impacted industries by the COVID-19 crisis. We have over 800 people on the call. If you want to ask the minister a question or if you have a suggestion, please press 3 on your call and we'll queue up. Eric, we'll go to you now for our second live call.
We have, as you mentioned, another live call. This one is from Steve. It's regarding funding under the ICIP. Steve, welcome. You're joining us live.
Thank you, and good morning, Minister. Thank you for hosting this call. I'm Steve Reddy, the Treasurer for the Town of Bracebridge. Will the province consider expediting the review of shovel-ready ICIP projects under the Community Culture and Recreation stream as an important economic stimulation opportunity in response to COVID-19?
Steve, that's a great question. In fact, it's been on my mind because when we went through the economic recession or the issues that we had in 2008, 2009, one of the great things about the recovery was the shovel-ready infrastructure that was on the ground and ready to go. So this stream is actually run by the Ministry of Infrastructure, but I can tell you what role we do play. So our staff on the ground in every community across Ontario from Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture Ministry are out assessing the projects. One of the conversations that I will have with my federal, provincial, territorial counterparts today is suggesting that we expedite that and that perhaps they relax some of their rules so that we can get moving on this. I think it's absolutely critical. It's money that's already been allocated. We just need to get it out the door. So I'm going to be an advocate for that, both within our government and externally with my federal and provincial territorial colleagues.
Terrific, Steve. And again, I appreciate people introducing themselves, where they're from, and what part of the sector you represent. So 2 great calls from Marie and Steve. I'm going to go back to an earlier submitted question, and this one I had to. My daughter Maitland loves playing hockey. Her season was canceled. I know Victoria's a big hockey player, and that sport's always been near and dear to your heart. Minister, as a person who brought Rowan's Law in the province of Ontario from opposition, has been the champion for sports and sports safety from the get-go. So with the cancellation of sporting leagues across the province, sporting events postponed and canceled, what's going to happen to our PSOs, provincial sport organizations, to help make up for the loss that they're seeing in their revenue and activities?
Yeah, I thank them for the question. I'll tell you a story about what happened on last Thursday. It was my daughter Victoria's 15th birthday, and she was excited to come to Toronto, not necessarily to see Mom, but to definitely be able to play in her hockey tournament. And as the day was unfolding, and I had said to her, I think your hockey tournament will be canceled. And so she told me that I ruined her life, of course, because she's 15, and she was really upset with me for personally canceling that hockey tournament.
No.
But it was the chief medical officer of health. It wasn't me. And I think we started to see. I knew that this was going to be far more serious than SARS. When I was meeting with the pro sports teams, and they were shutting down their operations, and I know the vast economic impact it would have on them and for the health and safety also of their employees. But our provincial sports organizations are the ones on the ground that are making sure our kids get to play minor sports, whether that's lacrosse or rugby or hockey or baseball or basketball. They're delivering this with lots of volunteers. I happen to be one with Nepean Wildcats, and I've seen firsthand as a hockey mom the economic impact it has had. So we want to make sure that we continue to flow their money as quickly as possible in the new fiscal, and then we'll work with them so that we can sustain sport. Sport and recreation is not just about athletics and competing. One of the biggest benefits of sport in our country is the fact that it builds a sense of brother and sisterhood. It is known to reduce anxiety and depression and mental health issues, and it has proven in some communities and some that it is good for suicide prevention programs. It also, I recall having a hockey game with my daughter's team against the Reds Girls 64 team that's from Fort, I believe, Hope, about a 30-hour drive on an ice highway, no less, from the city of Ottawa. And playing with those girls, I remember the Ontario Regional Chiefs, I believe at the time, said sport is also an ability for us to move toward reconciliation. And so sport, particularly amateur sport, will continue to be supported by this ministry. And when we come through this, and people are convening again in public spaces, it's going to be at the local soccer field, and it's going to be at the local, baseball pitch. It's going to be with children and their parents, and so we've got to make sure that we continue to support those organizations. And how we best do that, I'll be working with my ADM, Steve Harlow, so that we can build a robust recovery plan for them as well.
And has Victoria forgiven you yet, or?
Well, it remains to be seen. It changes by the day. She's 15 years old. Your daughter isn't that old yet.
Well, we're on our way, no doubt about it. All right, let's do another question, Minister. We'll go to the open lines. Eric, what do we got next?
Up next, we have a question from Stuart, who has a question regarding access to cash flow assistance. Stuart, welcome.
Thank you, and good morning, Minister, and good morning, everybody. Stuart Johnston from the Canadian Independent Music Association based in Toronto. Minister, first off, I wanted to echo other remarks by saying thank you very much for your leadership on this file and the leadership of Premier Ford and those of your colleagues in government. It's been exemplary, and it's exactly the kind of leadership we need during this trying time, so thank you. As you know, as you said already, that it's devastating to those of us in the creative industries. We just completed a 3-day survey getting almost 3,000 responses from a cross-section of the music community. And as you can imagine, it's dire straits. Everything's being canceled. At the best of times, access to capital and cash flow are challenges for our members, and no more so than what's happening right now. So my question, and others have alluded to it and you've talked about it, is With layoffs happening already, within 1 to 3 months, our members' cash flow and reserves will likely, a majority of them will likely run out after 1 to 3 months. Can you give us any sense of the mechanism and the timing that your government will have in terms of releasing and facilitating cash flow and helping with the cash reserves going forward to help the industry and, of course, the creative industries across the board?
Well, thanks very much. So obviously the federal government came out yesterday with their plans and spoke about liquidity. So I'm going to obviously be working with my federal counterpart to see how that can assist the creative industries here in the province of Ontario. It's possible they may come out with additional information. My cabinet colleagues and I are right now having ongoing discussions. So part of the reason I wanted to convene this telephone town hall and have those regular sectoral tables is to get advice from you on how exactly we do that. I can commit to you that the Ontario Music Fund will remain, Ontario Arts Council funding will remain, and if there's ways that I can enhance that, I will, and we'll be working with Ontario Creates in order to do that. What we should do, Stuart, is offline with yourself and Music Canada and maybe Canadian Live Music is come together for what the best approach might be, and really make sure that we put you guys in a position of success when this is over. Some of it is right now at the moment unavoidable because sometimes things are changing so rapidly that what we knew, an hour ago may change in the next few minutes. In fact, I've been on several calls with either my agencies or my attractions, and we've been making a decision point, and 20 minutes later, a new recommendation has come out from the Chief Medical Officer of Health, or the federal government has made an announcement, and the new reality changes every moment. So fully committed to making sure that we work together so that we can best support you, not only right now, but put you in a position in the future that makes sure that you're successful and leading the world at this time.
Very good, Stuart. Thank you for asking that question on behalf of the independent music producers. Minister, we've had a lot of people that have joined the call, now approaching 1,000 people that have linked in across every city, town, and village in Ontario. Some didn't hear the earlier part. So would you mind walking through, as minister responsible for these crucial sectors, how are you getting information on a daily basis, and then how do you liaise with Premier Ford and other cabinet ministers to react to the situation and set a plan going forward? What's your daily routine behind the scenes?
So the daily routine usually starts about 7 a.m. with either a call into the Premier's office or an industry call. And throughout the day, I get briefings from my Deputy Minister, my own staff. We meet every morning at 9 a.m., my team. And my team are... they're great because I've got about 18 staff, and every morning they take a list of 21 names each, and they call them. So that would be perhaps some of you received a phone call from them. It could be what my caucus colleagues. It could be industry leaders. So they're making those calls. So I've got real time information. I then go into usually 1 or 2 multi-sectoral calls or an industry-led table. I'm meeting frequently with our agencies and attractions. So just to give you to put this into perspective, when we made the decision last week on whether to keep the ROM and the AGO and the convention centers open or closed, we started the meeting. Actually, everybody was going to, I think, choose their own path, to the point where while we were on the call, this is real-time decision-making we're talking about, the public officer of health had said no gatherings larger than 250 at the time. And so we had to reconvene a little bit later. But those are what I'm doing. I'm consulting as much as I can to get the best ideas that I can and get it over to Cabinet. And, of course, we meet every day in Cabinet, so I have a regular touch point with my colleagues, including the Premier and the Finance Minister. And then, of course, I'm speaking with all of my MPP colleagues, including from the NDP, to make sure that, in their communities, I know what's going on in case there needs to be some targeted support. So that's what's happening each and every day. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's pretty hard when you wake up at 7 in the morning and you find out an airline is shutting down for a while, or that hotel occupancy is only at about 18%, or that some of our agencies are considering laying people off, and those are tough decisions. And like I said earlier, it does keep me up at night, but also it's what motivates me first thing in the morning to get back up and get to work, because the people that, I say it all the time, this is a spectacular double bottom line. Everyone on this line, if you're telling me we have almost 1,000 people or over 1,000 people, they're committed in each and every community across the province of Ontario to deliver critical programming that makes Ontario the best place to live in the world. And we can never lose sight of the fact that our quality of life is enhanced every single day by the creators on this line, and that is what motivates me, and that is what's motivating our team. And I've got a great team, and I probably have, and I say this all the time, I have the best senior leadership team in the world. I have access to a spectacular deputy minister. Her team of ADMs are incredible, and then we have all of the agencies and attractions, like the Metro Toronto Convention Centre, the Shaw Centre, Ontario Creates, Destination Ontario, the Heritage Trust, the OAC, the Trillium Foundation, with the ROM, the AGO. We have brilliant people that are every day providing me with sound guidance and advice, and I'm just very grateful for that. And then every single day I have the opportunity to talk to Premier Ford, just to let him know what's going on. And in some cases, he said, well, hey, I'd like to call that person directly. And so, he'll call the Greater Toronto Hotel Association and get direct feedback. And I think that's pretty incredible too, because he's been obviously a strong national leader at this time, and he's also remained open and accessible to as many people as he can speak to.
Again, you're part of the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industry Telephone Town Hall with Minister Lisa MacLeod. I'm Tim Hudak, CEO of the Ontario Real Estate Association. And Minister, I know I've had the pleasure of knowing you for 15 years as a colleague and a friend, and I know people on this call that have worked with you know that you're an incredibly hard worker. You care deeply about these sectors. You're passionate and, a fantastic champion for all the people involved there at the cabinet table. Let's now, Erica, go to our next open line call.
We have our next live call. It's coming up from Miles. Miles has a question about the possibility of an extension on the ban on large gatherings. Miles, welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Minister MacLeod, for this opportunity. We really do appreciate the work that you and your team are doing. I am Miles. I'm with the Burlington Sound of Music Festival, obviously in Burlington. So that current ban on gatherings of 50 people, it's created some uncertainty around cancellations and contracts and force majeure, insurance, all of those pieces. Do you foresee this ban extending past the currently projected March 31st date? Should this run into the summer, do we think?
Well, my hope is that we get through this together and we get through it quickly. But that's something I could not answer. I could not even speculate. Every moment of this, we make decisions based on the impartial medical advice of the Chief Medical Officer of Health. And he is the one that's making the assessments and making the recommendations. And that's that's the reality. As I said, last week it affected our agencies, boards and commissions within the ministry as we found out the 250. And then, of course, now we're down to 50 and we're in a state of emergency. So it's, I'd like to say it's day by day, but I think this new reality that we're experiencing is what happened 20 minutes ago could be outdated. And we're consistently keeping up to date through the ministry on the public health impacts, but also the economic impacts of all of you. So that's why we're continually developing and redeveloping plans as the situation changes, which is why it's very important, by the way, to have forums like this so I can speak to you directly, but you can also, ask me questions and provide me with advice. And I know we've had a great response on this. I'm going to ask them if it's possible to do a poll to see if you felt that this forum was useful, and perhaps if you'd like to do it again, because I can make myself available on a weekly basis right now if we want to do this on a go-forward basis throughout this crisis.
Let's do some rapid-fire calls. We got a large stack here, Minister. We have 15 minutes left in this call, and I know you want to do some wrap-up comments at the end. And folks listening again, if you have a question, we'll try to get through as many as we can. Please hit 3 on your phone. I do ask you to, again, state your name, what business you're with, and part of the province you're calling in from. And then as we've seen with these questions, including Miles, please keep them brief. We'll get through more questions that way. Eric, who's next?
Our next question is going to be coming up from Scott regarding any help for productions to start up again once the crisis is over. Scott, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister. It's Scott Garvey from Shaftesbury in Toronto, also on Film Ontario and the chair of the CMPA. I really appreciate your strong efforts to communicate with stakeholders clearly and accurately, and this transparency is really appreciated in these times. My question is a prospective one, assuming that the film and TV industry starts up again in the near future. My understanding from our insurance brokers that insurance to protect production and cast and crew will have many exclusions affecting force majeure clauses and whatnot. My question was, can the province, through the Financial Services Regulatory Authority or otherwise, assist or bolster the insurance regime to make sure that we can continue to get insurance cover for production going forward?
Well, thanks very much for your question. I appreciate the great work that you guys do. And for those that don't know who you are on the phone, Shaftesbury is responsible for Murdoch Mysteries. And so I think we want to continue to make sure we support you, that Murdoch Mysteries remains a great Canadian iconic television show. And, of course, it speaks to that great success we've had in the film and television industry with respect to the Canadian content that we are supporting. So one of the things, and you would know this, we've got a film advisory and TV panel that hopefully I'll be able to convene via teleconference in the next few days. It's led by Jim Mercopoulos, and of course the other person that is my co-chair is Christina Jennings, who I think you know quite well. I'm going to be asking them how we can expedite some of the recommendations. We only appointed them last week, but I've offered them the ability to provide me with interim options and reports. And so I think given the situation that we're in right now, all options right now are on the table, as Premier Sports said, because we want to make sure that we come through this, both healthy and strong physically, but also financially. So we're looking at options in order to help the film and television industry. But again, we just want to make sure that the message coming out of today and every day to Ontarians and to the world is in our film and television industry. We have tax credit stability. We're going to continue to work with Ontario Creates and the programs that they have so that we can build on our capacity both above and below the line, both on our film-friendly locations and sound studios, and of course ensuring that we continue to build on Canadian content. So a great question, and I think as we move forward in the next week or two with the Finance Minister, we'll be looking at how we can support businesses at this time on a more general basis as well. So thanks very much for your question, Scott.
All right, we've got about 8 minutes left. I know, Minister, you want to do a poll at the end, so people please stay on the line because the Minister does want to do a poll before we conclude this conference. Eric, let's get to the next question.
So we have our next live question coming up now from Joanne. Joanne, welcome. You're joining us live.
Thank you, and thank you, Minister, for doing this. I'm from Canoe Kayak, Ontario, and I was just wondering what might happen if you have received a sport hosting grant and you may have spent it, and in the event that the festival or event gets canceled.
So I just want you to know that this was one of the first things I thought of because of the sport hosting events. Two made it through. That was the Brier and the wrestling, the Pan Am wrestling Olympic qualifiers. And albeit the Olympic qualifiers, which were held here in Ottawa, ended up finishing without any spectators so that they could conclude that. We have had to cancel, I believe, the swimming Olympic trials have been canceled, and a few others will likely need to, and then there's some that we're monitoring. My commitment to anybody that we awarded a sport hosting contract to will not have to repay that. These are circumstances beyond their control, and as you know, it's unfortunate, but there are sunk costs, and so I don't want anyone thinking that they need that extra stress. These are elite athletes. We are promoting around the world, and it's really unfortunate. And the other thing is, in each of those communities, whether it's Windsor or Ottawa or Toronto or anywhere in between that was hosting these, has also seen a decline in their economic impact, because each one of these sport hosting events is driving not only excellence in athletics but major tourism dollars. And so it was very difficult to have been on that phone call last week, but my commitment is, it's not your you didn't create this problem, and I'm not going to make you pay for it. I just want to make sure that you know that.
Okay, Eric, back to you.
Well, we're actually going to do a quick poll. I know the minister mentioned she wants to do a poll, and what we're going to ask everyone is, using your touch-tone phone, you can indicate your response. We want to know, so far, have you found this event useful? Press 1 for yes, press 2 for no, and press 3 if you're unsure or undecided. So again, so far, have you found this event useful? Press 1 for yes, press 2 for no, and press 3 if you're unsure or undecided. Our next live question is going to be from Sheila regarding online resources in public libraries. Sheila, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister, for this opportunity. We really appreciate the chance to have this town hall. I guess one of the other things that we really appreciate is that the Premier did announce that public libraries are closed. He announced this past Tuesday. And we think it's important because we want to make sure that the public and public library staff are safe. Obviously, there is an impact to our sector as well. We have over 300 public libraries and First Nation libraries in communities across Ontario. And I think we need probably some help in getting the word out that digitally, libraries are still open, so obviously not their physical spaces, but we're seeing an increased demand on all sorts of digital services for Ontarians who do have access to the internet and devices. And we just want to make sure that the word is out there that people do have access to ebooks, online courses, databases, and more. And particularly since we're in March break and we know schools are closed for a little bit of time, we are seeing some impact on those services. So we do appreciate any support there, and we also appreciate the comment earlier about looking at trying to release provincial operating grants a little earlier. So I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity and just get the word out that we're still providing services to Ontarians.
Well, thank you very much, Sheila. Great question. And we had a meeting about this actually yesterday, and it was about making sure we could support digital content in libraries as well as with our galleries and our museums. And also, I'm trying to figure out if there's a way we can support other artists and help people find maybe a different source of income while live concerts are canceled, for example, or art galleries that they might be showing their works are canceled. So that's pretty key for us at the moment, and I know my ministry officials, in particular to the libraries, are working right now with the sector to help get the word out. But I'm fully committed to that because at the end of the day, as Tim mentioned, I have a 15-year-old daughter at home, and she's rapidly becoming bored of watching movies, and she's refusing to clean her room. So it'd be great to actually get her involved in reading online at the moment. So I appreciate the comment.
Sorry, same problem here. I'm not doing my share. No doubt about it. All right, we got 5 or 6 minutes left, so I think we can squeeze in at least one more call here. Eric, I'll put you back on the docket here.
Well, we have our next live call. It's coming up from Martin, who has a question regarding possible extensions for grant deadline.
Hi, my name is Martin. I'm from Ontario, and I would like to know if you plan on recommending to your department and agency to extend the period, the deadline for submitting reports for the end of the year and the new grant proposal for the new year.
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. We're looking at that. Obviously, things have rapidly changed and evolved. And of course, again, if you're thinking about doing a festival in June and you're now considering postponing it until, August or the spring, it might be something that we're looking at. So we will have more to say on this. Right now, we've been trying to, as best as possible, get the flow of information and get recommendations from all of you so that we can inform the Finance and the Treasury for the economic statement, and then look at our own programs internally. So we will have that opportunity. I'm not sure. I guess Martin may not be on the line to ask another question to him. But our assessments on a program by program basis right now, and a grant by grant basis in terms of timelines and administration. So we want to get a balance with programming, but at the same time, making sure that we get the money out quickly.
Terrific. Thank you very much for that, Minister. I got one last question I'm going to throw at you, just from personal observation, and then I'm going to put Eric back on to get the results of the poll. I mean, I've sort of known you for 15 years plus. There's two qualities that really jump out at this time. You've always had a sense of optimism. You've always had a sense that things get better even during dark times, and I know how excited you were to take on the Ministry for Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture because of the talent, the beauty, and the history that people on this call represent. Despite where we are now, Minister, how are you feeling personally about where we're going to be going? Will things get better? Does that optimistic streak that you've got in Lisa MacLeod's bones still persist?
So it's funny because our old friend Dalton McGuinty and I had a conversation yesterday, and he said he was happy that I still had my level of idealism, and of course, and my optimism. And I you know what, I have the best job in the world because I have the best people to work with, and they're creative, and I think that they're always going to find creative solutions. And so I'm optimistic that we're going to be very well positioned at the end of this to attract more tourists than ever before, because we will have come out of a public health issue in a very good way because of the response by our deputy premier and our premier and our healthcare system. I think that we've got critical cultural and sport infrastructure throughout the province that will reemerge. I believe that as long as we continue to collaborate together, that we will find solutions to our challenges. And the fact of the matter is, we're not going through this alone. Every other jurisdiction in the world is experiencing the same thing. And so if we can make sure we sustain people in the meantime and mitigate some of the other challenges, I believe we will be in a position of readiness. And that's why I'm working in tourism with Lisa Lavecchia and Destination Ontario and Beth Potter of the Tourism Industry Association, so that when we come out of this, we're positioned globally as a place where people will want to come. I'm working right now with our sport hosting programs, my ADM, Steve Harlow, as well as with our professional pro sports teams, to make sure that when this is over, people are back out and making sure that their kids are playing soccer and hockey and other sports, and that we're positioned well to have tourism and travel associated with our pro sports teams. And in the cultural industries, I'm going to continue to work with the music industry, the television and film industry, our book publishing industries, our artists, so that we make sure that we have a clarion call to the rest of the world, so people understand that some of the best musicians, some of the best productions in the world are coming from Ontario. So I have a real sense of pride in everybody that is around this table and as part of this telephone town hall. And I know that they have built cultural and sport infrastructure in every community in this province, and that the infrastructure will be important as we recover from this public health situation, as well as this, economic crisis.
Well, I knew it was in the bones, so it's great that MacLeod spirit and his optimism is fighting for us every day and sees down the road. Eric, we're going to bring you back on for another polling question as we conclude.
Well, thank you, Tim. And I do just want to share that over 80% of people responded to the first poll that this event has been useful, so that is great to hear. And we are going to do another
Except for Eric, if you're me and you're the most optimistic person, who are the 20%?
It was actually 82%, so of the respondents. Now, we are going to do another poll right now. You can use your touch-tone phone to indicate your response. We want to know, would you participate in future town hall events like this one? Press 1 for yes, press 2 for no, and press 3 if you're unsure or undecided. So again, would you participate in future town hall events like this one? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 if you're unsure or undecided. And Tim, back to you.
Well, we're at 11:30, so maybe there's a chance to go back real quick when you have those results. Eric, from the call, sorry, from the poll you just did. I just want to say, I really am honored, Mr. MacLeod. Thank you for inviting me to participate and help to run the show, so to speak, today. And having been there during 2 previous crises with SARS at the cabinet table, and for many of the sectors that you represent during the 9/11, everybody stopped traveling. I know how much pressure is on your shoulders. I know how much information is flying around. And I know how difficult it is to look through the present to a more optimistic future. And I think you're doing an outstanding job. So thank you for doing this town hall. Thanks for the transparency and your clear-headed decision-making. I'll throw it to you for last comments.
All right. Thanks very much, Tim, and thanks, everybody, for being on the line. Whether you're, working with the ministry, or this is one of the sectors that you're dealing with. Again, I think I said it at the outset. These are extraordinary times, and day by day is very unpredictable. Again, I just ask that you remain confident in the work that the ministry is doing, so that we can best protect the assets that you guys bring to this province. And again, I always call it the spectacular double bottom line. We have a dual mandate in this ministry to make sure that there is a cultural fabric and social impact to everything we do, but at the same time driving the economic bottom line and understanding that many on this call put paychecks into people's pockets. So I just want to thank everybody for being part of this. I am going to remain open and accessible during this entire process, as I have been before, and I will remain after. But day by day, I really do appreciate the emails into the office, the text messages and the calls, and just reaching out to me to tell me what's going on in each one of your sectors. I think if you notice by the types of questions that were delivered, every single person on this line, even if you're doing something different, you're what creates the most livable province in the world. And I want to encourage you to understand that you're part of something that big. And we were the first and hardest hit in terms of the economic issues. But I'm going to tell you, when we get through this, we are going to be the first line of normalcy when it returns, because people are going to want to go to your restaurants. They are going to want to visit your hotels. They are going to want to visit your museum, your public library. They're going to want to watch your movies. They're going to want to go to your concerts. They're going to want to read your book. And when we get back together as a society to the normal that we remembered, it will be all of you that will contribute to that cultural comeback and our economic comeback. And I'm 100% committed to making sure that happens. So thank you very much, Tim, and thank you to everybody. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Minister, for the very passionate closing comments. Before I thank everybody, as the moderator, Eric, would like to know what the results were from your second poll.
Well, from the second poll, we saw a lot of respondents, and I think it was a very high people who would like to participate. I think about 95% or even more have said they would like to participate in future events like this one.
Minister, that's a pretty good grade.
I think so. I think it's great. And I know that there are about 5 questions that we didn't get to. So if they would just like to email my office at minister.macleod, obviously you know how to spell minister, but MacLeod sometimes a bit tougher, MACLEOD at ontario.ca. We'll get you answers the best way we possibly can and as quickly as we possibly can.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much, Minister, and I want to thank the almost 1,000 people that we had on today's teleconference phone call. Thanks for responding to the polls. Minister gave out the email there if you have any follow-up questions, and I know the Minister's team has also collected the ones we did not yet get to help inform their communications going forward to all of you. And again, remind everyone that not only is the Minister there, got your back and fighting for you, but all of the staff at the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture are available to support you, to take your questions and get your advice. Again, Minister, thank you very much. Terrific job. And thanks, folks, for today's call. And we all look forward to more positive times ahead as we rebound, as the Minister just outlined. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again to everyone for joining us. Just a quick reminder, if you still have any questions or feedback you'd like to share with Minister MacLeod, the email to do so is minister.macleod@ontario.ca. Thank you again, everyone. Have a good day.